Social foundations of education. Good morning. My name is Lot, and I am here to share the things I learned in our course about social foundations of education. Social education theories have been developed by social scientists in order for us to understand how the educational system functions or not. We all know how education plays a very important role in improving people's lives and in developing a nation. So, does our country put enough efforts to ensure that we are providing the quality education equally available for all? Let's take a look at how our educational system has evolved from the barrio to Spanish to American and to how we are today. Let's discuss first how the barrio school has been established. Barrio school was actually the first education system of our country. It sought to uplift social welfare of the community. However, shortcomings on the teacher's competence to drive proper education has been one of the few that was experienced. Teachers are not skilled enough to teach a subject matter, nor to lead the school, which is very important. Another concern was the lack of enough budget to support and sustain schools. Nevertheless, teachers displayed compassion and heroic acts to ensure that pupils are developed in the best that they could. During the Spanish colonialism, friars were in control of the education system. It was a religious oriented education where it aimed to convert indigenous people to Catholic faith. This is also the time where Jose Rizal put emphasis on his mission to elevate the country to its highest seat of glory through education, as this is the only means to be liberated from domination. So here comes American colonialism period, where almost a total reform began. American government was in charge of providing education. By building public schools, almost every citizen were given the privilege to get educated. English language was also used as a medium of education, and mostly what education system we have today has been well influenced by the Americans. One of the main purposes of education is to ensure that every citizen is equipped with the right skills and competence to effectively function in the society. In this perspective, each aspect of society is interdependent, where the contribution of every citizen is essential in stabilizing the nation's welfare as well as the economic growth of its people. In our country, our education system seeks to improve every Filipino's lives by trying to its best to provide the quality education to its people. In functional perspective, our education is helping children socialize while preparing them to acquire the skills and abilities they need as they eventually enter a larger societal responsibilities in adulthood. People use social placement as one of the major methods provided by education for upward social mobility. Tertiary and graduate schools are prospects as channels for students' advancements closer to the careers that they will assure them the financial freedom and security they seek. Thus, more college students are motivated to concentrate on areas they are considered to be advantage of in their pursuit of stepping the social ladder. Education also accomplishes the latent functions since it introduces students to social networks that can help find jobs upon completion of schooling. One latent function is the ability of students to work with other small groups with an inherent skill that is transferable to a workplace. This is one of the expected outcomes of K 12 education being viewed to provide transformative education to Filipino students. The educational system, K 12, bounded by educational goals and objectives, also provides a place for students to learn about diversity of social issues. Both the manifest functions and latent functions within the sphere of K 12 are expected to eliminate the bridging effect between education and its mismatch. Under this theory, educational transformation, not only in terms of curriculum and pedagogy, but also on the improved general characteristics and capabilities of students, are the target of K 12 education. Well, all this seems ideal and sounds, especially with the recent reform of K 12 system that promises to provide better quality education, since students will be more prepared to join the workforce without the immediate need to secure a college degree. The fact remains that the reform is still not addressing the issues that have been present in our country since 1920, like the high dropouts, poor performance of students, poverty, teacher competence, and even the spending of DepEd. Not to mention the big gap of public versus private quality education. Equality means having or giving the same opportunities for everyone, no matter the status, race, skills, or capabilities. It also constitutes the availability of good resources to support education. But how can that be implemented if we have public and private schools? The public is limited to what the central office dictates, while the private can incorporate advanced subjects, better tools, more competent teachers, and even better classrooms. Why is that? Undeniably, our country's educational system promotes social inequality since the beginning of time. The rich gets better education while the poor endures what is just available for them. And worse, there are still those who cannot afford to attend school due to financial and other challenges they have. Other factors to consider are the private schools have the autonomy on their own curriculum. They have the liberty to add subjects, apply their own method of teaching, and more, whereas public schools are mandated to adhere to the curriculum directed by the central office. Equity in education means providing the equal supported need or providing the support needed for students to gain the equal chance of success. Put simply, able to provide solutions to students to address challenges like commute, transportation, and even poverty. Unfortunately, our country does not have a program or system that will help address common issues our students face. Take, for example, the schools in remote areas where students commute is by foot to the point of crossing rivers just to get to the school. The lack of budget to provide free transportation for the safety and convenience of the students is still not addressed despite the effort of the communities raising this. Another recent concern that magnified the inequality in our educational system is the recent transition to online or modular studies brought about by the pandemic. It is no doubt that DepEd considered the safety of the students, hence creating alternative solutions to continue education. Unfortunately, I think DepEd did not carefully factor in the reality of everyone's economic challenges being faced that affected not just the public sector, but a handful from the private as well. Despite the opposition on this action, DepEd insisted and guaranteed that they are ready for this big change, assured the public that this action is essential, putting in mind that education should never stop. This approach they've implemented are as follows. The modular, where it uses modules or handouts that are given to students but without the teacher to guide them, and the online platform, a teacher is present to guide students using internet and a gadget. However, the following are the factors that have been presented during this transition. Number one, the financial difficulties. Government is unable to provide gadgets and internet connection to all students to enable them to study online, especially in the public sector. Government failed to recognize that there are families in both public and private sectors who are financially challenged, especially in this time of pandemic where a lot of employees have been displaced. Some parents who also prefer online studies do not have enough budget to purchase gadgets and internet connection. Another problem that was presented is the support system of our government. Teachers were not given enough training on how to effectively conduct teaching online. Teachers are not provided with the sufficient and reliable tools to enable them to effectively teach. And teachers are only given a short period of time to create modules for modular students, resulting to very low quality materials. Parents then decide whether they enroll their children to online or modular or not. The approach implemented just put an emphasis on the socio-economic inequalities that contribute to the challenges in education instead of just fulfilling its main objective of continuous learning. To look into this further, DepEd strongly implements a centralized structure of managing our education system. from decision making down to the budget distribution to accommodate the needs of every school and everything and everyone in it, resulting to notable wasted resources of fund allocation that are not equally and correctly distributed to the correct recipients. Also, due to curriculum being just the same for all, teachers' professional competence are compromised, and teaching approach became generic, creating more dysfunction and poor learning outcomes. The implementation of BESRA seeks to reform educational system by recognizing every issues, difficulties, and other inefficiencies that needed to be addressed. It mainly focuses on improving the inequality and the equity in students within the allocated financial budget of the government. BESRA established education arms to address the recurring concerns of our educational system, like TESDA, IALS, LTVE, IP, or ME, delivering satisfactory outcome to date. While this is the case, we still cannot conclude that our education system on basic education is already meeting its ultimate goal of producing competent students and ensuring that it is participated by all. We can still observe that DepEd is still observing the centralized system despite having different units supporting this program. Our teachers still follow the directives of the central office, hence limiting their potential to drive better education experience. Centralized system also affects dissemination of information, communication, and delays in implementation of memos or policies. Usually, schools face limitations on their actions, especially the schools in remote regions, due to the proximity and communication constraints. Despite the efforts of the reform that DepEd is doing, it cannot hide the fact that its realization is far to be successful. We cannot discount the fact that a centralized system is very vulnerable to corruption, causing the utilization of budget to be realigned, compromising projects that could alleviate our country from poverty and depriving our students of their basic right to education. Until reform inside the government is done, then we can start expecting a sustainable approach to quality education where the next generations will acquire global competence and skills to aid them in their lives. It is unfortunate that until today, despite the numerous discussions, proposals, justifications, and the like, to successfully implement the reformation in education, we are still far from having that kind of education that will promote equity and equality. Yes, Finland's education system is so ideal and seemed to be perfect, but it will be very difficult to adapt it in our country today. A leader with a very strong political will who will desire for high quality education for our people is needed in order to reform our education successfully. Otherwise, we will just be repeating the same issue and approaches over and over again. My biggest thanks to our professor who opened my mind to the realities of our education system that persisted since the beginning of time. And this has led me to think that only a decentralized system is the option to realize the improvement of quality education that our country needs. Let us follow how Finland did it. Their strong belief in equality in education is what made them a big success. Private schools are well, good, but it only is creating social disconnects and raising more discrimination among almost to every students in our country. I propose that we eliminate private schools for the basic education, create a higher quality qualification for teachers, increase their wages, put all the budgets for building a better public schools equipped with all the state-of-the-art facilities, provide free meals to students, and most especially decentralized Department of Education, similar to how Finland did it. I hope that I could one day effect this change in our country. Private schools are businesses, and so as the entire Department of Education, insisting on their system with minimal positive results. Eradicate the selfishness, especially the corruption in the government, then we all can expect a better education, more driven students, and successful nation. I know that this will be a very debatable change, should it be considered. But if everyone will just be united in uplifting the education system and the quality of our students, adapting how Finland did it, then I'm sure that it will happen. Only if all will be willing to sacrifice and make some changes. Thank you so much.